Formed in 1978, the Newcastle Police Rescue Squad is one of only 3 full-time units in the state, the others being in Sydney and the Illawarra. Comprising 2 full-time and 14 part-time staff, the squad's become a common sight at emergency scenes over the years, but now its days may be numbered. Police Minister Ted Pickering has ordered an investigation of all the regional rescue squads, concentrating on the number of calls, the costs and the response times. If recent trends are taken into account, Newcastle Police Chief Superintendent Russ Cook admits things look grim for the unit's prospects. Just how busy is our Police Rescue Squad?
Well, it has dropped down of late simply because with the introduction of the Rescue Management Act, the whole area has been split up and has been reduced, and the workload of the police has been reduced accordingly.
Where the squad's responsibilities would be transferred is unclear. At present, in the city area, police share responsibility with the ambulance rescue unit. Fire brigade and SES teams are also available. If the role was shifted to any of these, so would be the squad's 2 state-of-the-art rescue trucks and 4-wheel drive. That was a scenario that Superintendent Cook did not seem to find unreasonable. He was confident any of those accredited services could adequately step into the role, allowing the 16 men employed here to be utilised elsewhere.
Whilst they're doing that, they're not doing other work. So if they weren't doing, say, rescue work and somebody else was handling that, it would allow the police who are involved to be occupied in other duties in the patrols where they're attached.
However, no matter who takes up the rescue reins, Superintendent Cook stressed the coordination at all emergency scenes would remain strictly under police control. It appears the state government is in a hurry to sell its surplus properties in the Hunter region. Tenders for the development of Wickham School closed on Friday, while expressions of interest are now being received for both Glendale Public School and Adamstown Heights Infant School. According to the Property Services Group, 2 development ideas for Wickham are being considered. One is known to have been submitted by local architectural firm Eckford Johnson for office space, possibly for their own use, while no details except that it is from Sydney is available on the other proposal. A decision on the school is expected next week. Meanwhile, member for Charlestown Richard Face has criticised the state government for putting Adamstown Heights School up for sale. According to Mr Face, one of the proposals being considered is for a hostel development on the site.
This, of course, when evaluated from its land content point of view, might be valuable, but it's a public asset, and I think that the people here should be consulted before they actually dispose of it. There are some activities that could be put into these buildings that would be most inappropriate in a closely knit urban area.
Expressions of interest for both Adamstown Heights and Glendale close on the 15th of next month. As both sites are already zoned residential, the sale is not expected to be delayed by red tape. The mass meeting at Curry drew members of the Amalgamated Metalworkers Union from Liddell, Bayswater, Vales Point, Eraring and Munmora power stations. They voiced their anger at the Electricity Commission and the state government for apparently letting out contracts for minor work at rates below site agreements. Originally, these contracts were for small electrical, plumbing and domestic jobs, but the union claims longer-term work is now being included at the lower rates. The long-term contractors fear their own agreements could be in jeopardy when up for renewal in 6 months' time.
The members' greatest fears, of course, is that they will reduce the site rates conditions, start to put them out under period orders, which would mean a reduction in up to $200 odd a week per employee.
They voted to strike for 48 hours and then to launch rolling strikes as part of a concerted campaign.
There is a continuous campaign planned with their following strikes to continue on all power stations in New South Wales until we resolve the dispute.
Robin Logan with the magic plants and medicine bag off to another house call. It seems Robin is not only a hit with staff and students at Tocal, she's also won some admirers in the animal world.
Yes! Yes! Mama! Like little mama dolls.
The 55-year-old grandmother-to-be has studied and practiced alternative medicine for a decade, specialising in the human body. But after repeated inquiries from patients on how to treat their pets, she decided to branch out. To tune up her skills, Robin enrolled at Tocal, and despite some early scepticism, she's been accepted with open arms.
In the past we've accepted modern methods as being the best method, and that's not necessarily right. We're starting to pay the cost of it in some areas.
It's what I do, any housewife can do. Most of it's nutritional and just taking care, tender loving care and nutritional, which any housewife or farm wife can do.
In her free time, Robin collects her herbs and treats the animals on the campus. According to staff, she saved animals which were doomed for the markets. Robin says plants like willow or even dandelions can cure illnesses. Common fennel is perfect for indigestion.
All the ruminants like it. I believe the horses like it as well. It helps humans as well. So it's good for everybody, the old fennel seed, and there's plenty of it out there for free, so you don't even have to go shopping for it.
While some may label Robin as eccentric, she admits sometimes modern veterinary techniques can help. She says it's a case of a sensible mix with, of course, a good dose of tender loving care. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
At Hamilton South Public School, the writing is literally on the wall.
At the moment, the department is planning to take it from us, and we're planning to hang on to it. How we do that yet, we don't know, but at the moment we're fighting.
The cause of the conflict is a government plan to move this building to a school at Trundle in the state's west. The Education Department says the daycare group, which last year had a total enrolment of 198 children and an average daily attendance of about 30, can simply move its activities into the school hall. Daycare staff say otherwise.
Those chairs that are in there are set up permanently for assembly, which means we can't move those and use the hall space. The floor is very highly polished, and we don't want to give the cleaners of the school any hard work, so we do all our activities outside if we're in the hall, and it just makes it very difficult conditions to work under.
The department maintains those problems are relatively minor.
Well, as schools have gone back, classes have increased, and we have a number of schools in the state that have children either in the playground or in unsuitable accommodation waiting for a classroom.
But for the time being, the building is going nowhere. The Newcastle Trades Hall Council has imposed a ban on the site, and according to Secretary Peter Barrack, it will remain in place for the foreseeable future. Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
In the well-tended residential streets of Edgeworth, there's more than just a whiff of discontent. Residents say the terrible smell that has plagued them on and off for the past 30 years is getting worse, and no reporter with a nose for a good story could fail to notice the stench.
It's absolutely shocking. It's disgusting. Nobody should have to live with it. And quite frankly, I really believe that there'll be an outbreak of disease if it goes on.
Locals say they have repeatedly complained to the Hunter Water Board, Pollution Control Commission and Lake Macquarie Council with no long-term success. Today, the strength of feeling and smell was enough to prompt an instant gathering. They say the problem extends over a 3-kilometre radius, is worse in summer, enough to wake them in the night, and particularly bad at meal times, especially breakfast.
I walked to the door this morning and the stink was so awful that I actually felt salty taste coming in the mouth and I knew that I was going to be sick.
No amount of air freshener can kill the smell in their homes, and gardens full of flowers cannot keep it from their washing. Residents suspect it may be this sewage treatment plant which is responsible for the stench. And from the very unpleasant smell wafting over right now, it's not hard to see or smell why. But this afternoon, the Hunter Water Board admitted it was responsible for the problem. Next week, chemicals will be injected into sewerage pipes that run from Lake Macquarie Council's Cockle Creek Sanitary Depot to the Edgeworth plant. Here, modifications will also be made to try and stop the smell, hopefully once and for all. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.
The 1990 event gained Australia-wide recognition and the standard of play was exceptional. It's hard to gain a berth in the starting 20 players, but if you do manage to get the nod, there's plenty of rewards to be reaped. New faces this year will be Lindsay Rose, Alwyn Sargent, Scott Wagland, Peter Zambellis, Sharon McLeish and Lindsay Coles. The league will run over several months, and to open the season, the Women's World Bowler of the Year, Sydney's Sue Castle, rolled the first of many games to thunder down the lanes at Bennett's Green. In 1990, Sue bowled a 300 game in the New South Wales Open. She won the Women's South Pacific Classic and took out the FIQ All Events gold medal in Jakarta. Thankfully for those in the TPA League, she won't be competing. Speed of a different kind, and the Wing Monsters return to the Newcastle Motordrome tomorrow night for the Winfield Sprint Car Grand National. The star attraction will be American Danny Smith, who will be out to turn the tables on newly crowned Australian champion Max Dumsney, fellow American Jackie Hewitt and Sydney teenager Brooke Tatnell, who finished third in the Australian titles. Tatnell's dad George will also provide plenty of tough opposition to the hard chargers, and he's keen to add to his already impressive array of trophies.
A Holden Kingswood and Mitsubishi van collided on the intersection of Steel Street and Redhead Road, a kilometre south of the Redhead dump at 4 this afternoon. Rescue services worked to free the passengers. The driver of the Kingswood was trapped for half an hour, his car dumped in a ditch beside the road. While nervous relatives looked on, the Westpac rescue helicopter was called to ferry one victim with a heart condition to Royal Newcastle Hospital. 3 other patients were taken to Belmont Hospital by road. Police investigators are still on the scene. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Today, Wits entertained a gathering of enthralled cricket fans at the Wallsend RSL Club, reminiscing on his early days, his break into the Blues Sheffield Shield side in 80-81 and his surprise selection to play for Australia in England during 1981. Since that time, injury and bad luck have followed Whitney until he ripped through the West Indies in Adelaide, taking 7 for 89 2 years back. Then the unthinkable. Whitney's name wasn't among those chosen for the Aussie touring team to England last year, a major disappointment for the Matraville Mauler. But he's back and leaves next Tuesday for the Caribbean. And as his character would allow, he has a chuckle about the re-emergence of Michael Whitney.
I'd like to tell you a few stories about my career, which is now 10 years on. And when they read that term out the other day, I thought, geez, they let their bloody run a bit late. I'm 32 this month, and at 25, and then I was feeling a bit pressure.
Meanwhile, Newcastle meet the ACT in the final of the Tooheys Country Cricket Cup at Carl Oval on Sunday, and for Newcastle captain Greg Arms, they will approach the 50-over match a little differently to normal.
We will approach it in an attacking style. We're fairly confident that we can do well. As for a change, I'll be opening the batting and we'll put our main batsman up early to try and take us to 50 overs.
While the Newcastle team has tremendous depth and boasts a brilliant batting lineup, the ACT team will be vastly different from the one that was comprehensively thrashed by Newcastle in a 3-dayer late last year.
I think they were trying a few players and it didn't work out for them, and we were a fairly set side and we were well prepared for that game, but times will be a lot different this Sunday.
The point-scoring guard fell out with Falcons coach Ken Cole at the end of 1990. Hill claiming if he stayed in Newcastle, his chances of greater honours would be hindered.
Well, I didn't agree with Ken that he was going along the right track with the team. I thought that possibly we needed a couple of bigger guys to go in the team, and in bringing back 2 guards, I thought that wouldn't assist my chances of bettering my performances and also of making the Australian team.
A move to the Sydney Kings seems to have reaped immediate returns, with Hill named in the 19-man squad selected from a group of 30 national trialists. 12 of the 19 represented Australia at the World Championships. The squad will be cut to 10 for the game against New Zealand in June. The 2 newcomers to the Aussie squad, Hill and Patrick Reedy, have both represented their country at junior levels.
For onlookers, it was difficult to see the reason behind the mare's foray into the underbrush. The last sighting of koalas was 12 months ago, and being nocturnal animals, the chances of stumbling across them in daylight were low.
I think it's a sort of a publicity stunt. I don't think it's really the right way to go about it, but I don't object. It's a way that we can all become better informed about the koalas.
Well, I don't actually expect to find any koala bears, but I do expect to find some evidence that they have been there.
If you did find some evidence of it, would it change your plans in any way?
No, that's not the reason for it. It's just that we might see that there is some evidence, and that might lead us to take more precaution with any development application that we allow through.
Local resident groups are angry at the council's plan to accept a state government deal for the development of 18% of the land in exchange for $1 million to turn the remainder into parkland. They are particularly concerned over reports that a small koala population lives in the area, and say that a full study is required before any decision is made.
What we need to do is to do this scientifically, not really in an ad hoc safari fashion.
Safari fashion or otherwise, the koala hunters braved mosquitoes, rocky terrain and low branches in their search.
Just how much can a koala bear?
They probably all went on holidays when they heard we were coming.
At Safari's end, no koalas, but still something to grin about. To a different environmental matter, this time at Kahaiba. Pest controllers in Newcastle donated their time and 1,000 litres of weedicide to control lantana at the Glenrock Scout Camp. The noxious weed is 4 metres high in places, and Scout leaders were worried it would engulf the 8-hectare site. It's now planned to rejuvenate the area with 200 native trees.
Newcastle looked in an unbeatable position at 4 for 220 in the 35th over, and David Willis continued the onslaught with a cracking square drive. But shortly after, he skied one trying to increase the run rate and was comfortably caught. Jeff Cook hammered the ACT attack with a brilliant cut shot and then went over the top for another boundary. Dyson also got into the act with a magical boundary, and Newcastle were in total command. Then a collapse as firstly Cook went to a sensational catch in the deep by Brad Bretland. Soon after, Dyson followed in a horrible mix-up with Murray Christie. The second run looked on, but a brilliant throw by Colin Crouch had Dyson well short of his ground, and Newcastle were letting the ACT back in the match. Christie was the next to go when he skied one, and Greg Irvine took an excellent catch. Very next ball, Kevin Bray tried to hit Steve Smith into late Macquarie, but only managed to one-handed hook high in the air, and Smith was on a hat-trick. But Stu Bridges weathered the storm on the last ball of the innings, and Newcastle finished with 9 for 290 after their 48 overs. Eleven branches from New South Wales fielded 15 competitors each in the State Enterprise Championships, and on home soil the Newcastle branch was trying to retain their title. And they started pretty well with Sean Davis winning the surf race from Illawarra and Sydney. Newcastle also won the surf teams event with Illawarra second and Manly Warringah third. Sydney gained revenge in the ski boat relay, and in a sensational boat race, Illawarra won by a scrape of varnish from Manly Warringah and the Central Coast. The board ski board race was a beauty, with Newcastle leading for the first two legs, and then Illawarra and Sydney took over, with eventually Sydney just getting home from a gallant Illawarra. But all eyes were focused on the Tooheys Ironman Classic and the showdown between the Mercer brothers Darren and Dean. Darren was that tense before the race that he was visibly ill, while Dean seemed fairly relaxed. But when the gun went, it was the champion from the Nutrigrain series that shot to the lead. And it was Darren who was in front after the board leg, followed closely by Newcastle's Matthew Rees. On the return from the swim leg, it was the Mercer Quinella, as Darren and Dean grabbed a little roller and headed for the beach. Darren was up and running first, with Dean and a group of other Ironmen hot on his hammer. Darren got clean water in the ski leg, while Dean was unceremoniously hammered by 4 waves, which knocked him right out of contention. That left the way clear for Darren Mercer to street away and win the Tooheys Classic, with Borg in second place and Lemon in third. Newcastle's Matthew Rees finished a tremendous 5th place.
Loading was underway on the Bar Darling, berthed at the Western Basin, when just after 8:30 a dockside worker fell, hitting his head on a metal grating. The man had apparently ducked to avoid being hit by a swinging loading boom. He lost balance and fell to the floor of a gantry. Ambulance officers and the police rescue squad came to his assistance. He was lowered in a stretcher to a waiting ambulance. The Tobruk was Newcastle's prize in a pricing war waged throughout Australian and Southeast Asian dockyards. Australia's commitment to the Gulf War put the refitting project on hold. The traditional Navy dockyard at Garden Island fired a cost-cutting broadside for the job, but ultimately it was the reliability and the quality of work at Newcastle's Four-Jacks floating dock that won the day.
Navy very, very happy what we've done in the past in the different Navy ships, and I think we've done a very, very good job for them, and I think that's why the ships come to Newcastle again.
The value of the contract has not been disclosed, but it's estimated the ship and its 150 crew will generate $1 million for other services for each month of their stay here. The floating docks workforce will be doubled for the job, which will see the ship's metal skin ground bare above the waterline and hundreds of kilometres of pipes and tubing replaced. The Carrington Slipways built ship is designed to carry tanks and infantry personnel for amphibious landings. The Defence Department has stepped up security around the dock for the duration of the work.
It was an odd day in more ways than one. 300 hackers, golfers and footballers converged on the Waratah golf course to raise money for Ronald McDonald House and ridicule their playing partners. Glenn Miller wasn't the only knight to strike trouble. Rodney Shoesmith celebrated his selection in first grade by attacking the trees that lined the 10th fairway, and hooker Scott Carter showed he can slice as well. There was also the odd bit of serious golf, including the sort of shot that keeps the great white shark from winning more majors. But the star of the day was Big David Boyd. He stole the show by first driving down the middle of the fairway, then driving away in the coach's buggy. Big Al wasn't impressed.
They've got mine down the next hole, the next bloody freeway. I'll get one, or we've got to catch them up.
They chased each other all over the course. Not surprisingly, David isn't in the squad to take on Balmain. 19 players have been named with 6 positions bracketed at this stage. 2 players will be omitted before the side heads north to Bundaberg. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.